What is sentence level editing? Hi, I'm Iris Marsh. For those of you who don't yet know me, I help indie authors with their manuscripts so they can publish with confidence. And today in this video, we'll talk a bit more about sentence level editing, like what it is, what I mean by it, with some examples. So, as the name suggests, sentence level editing is everything on a sentence level in terms of editing, although sometimes it's also on a paragraph level. So to kind of illustrate what this means, um, for instance, with developmental editing, you look at the story as a whole. So you consider the plot and the character arcs and whether you're seeing moved and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot more broad and looking at your story on a very high macro level. And with sentence level editing, it's essentially combining line and copy editing. So look at each individual sentence or at a paragraph as a whole, and you can consider how do I make this better. And this is both in terms of grammar, but also in terms of style, like word choice, showing versus telling, and those kinds of things, using literary devices, stuff like that. So why would you combine line and copy editing? Because you can also do them separately, like line editing first, copy editing second. But in my view, so these are two separate skills, but they really complement each other. And especially if you consider that heavy copy editing has like a lot of overlap with line editing very often, because in both instances of editing, you look at the sentence, and while with line editing, you're more concerned about stylistic choices, so things like flow, word choice, and with copy editing, you're more concerned about proper grammar, spelling, stuff like that, fact checking. There's no reason, in my view, why you can do them just both at the same time. Because it saves time to do them simultaneously, and so more importantly, also saves money if you hire someone to do it. It's also been kind of my experience with publishing companies, whether traditional or hybrid, that they skip kind of line editing, but they usually do expect the copy editor to kind of put on that hat as well, stating something like needs just a light copy edit, so you have fewer line editing elements, or a heavy copy edit, which has more line editing elements. But that's been my experience, and your experience may be different. So we're just going to have a look at kind of what it looks like, right? So we start with what a light copy edit would be. So you're only concerned with things like grammar, syntax, punctuation, and the like, and fact checking if that's necessary in the text. And we're going to look at two examples, one fiction and one nonfiction. So the first fiction example, you can hopefully see it on the screen. So you can just read it. And in this example, we're doing a light copy edit. So we would fix it as follows. We would add the Oxford comma if this is the preferred usage. So it becomes Tesea came back with a kettle of tea, comma, mugs, comma, and a plate with meat. We change into to two, so tears sprung to my eyes. And we change the something after the ellipsis to have a capital, so it's something really bad with a capital S, because they're planning something dot dot dot, kind of like it's the end of a sentence more than the start, like the middle, like a pause within the middle of a sentence. So usually a copy editor will do more than this, although, always keep in mind not to change what isn't broken. That's kind of what you do as an editor. It just means that you don't edit something simply because it's not how you would write it. However, if you edit it as the writer, then that doesn't really apply to you. You can change whatever you want. Anyway, now we have the nonfiction example. So again, on the screen, and you can read it, or pause it if you need some more time to read the example. So here with the light copy edit, we would fix the following. We would add a hyphen to long-lasting habits. Again, we add the Oxford comma when this is a preference. So it's from particular situations, comma, people, comma, surrounding, comma, or things. We change the contraction back to you are if the formality of the text calls for it. It always depends a bit for nonfiction how formal the writing is. And again, a copy editor will much likely do more than this. This is a bit close to a proofread. So, next step, when we add a bit more line editing to copy editing. So here we come into medium or heavy copy editing territory. And like honestly, most copy editors, as far as I know, will also look at the readability of the sentence and the paragraph as a whole. So that's where we enter more into the line editing territory, such as word choice, ambiguity, flow, repetition, and stuff like that. So in this case, our edit will look a bit different. So let's go back to the examples with the grammar fixed. So here you can see it on the screen again. We might suggest a few more things. So to avoid the many commas in the first sentence, which hampers readability, the more commas you have, the more difficult the sentence is to read. So the author could opt to change it into something like, the say came back with a kettle of tea, mugs, and a small charcuterie board. I can't really pronounce charcuterie. Or if like the homegrown turnips, for instance, in that section are very important, as it does show some characterization. It can also be like a small, there we go again, charcuterie board that included some turnips from her garden. With I took it gratefully, we might query the author to ask what this looks like for the sake of show, don't tell. Note that this will depend on the rest of the story, as sometimes it's good to tell something to just kind of move the pace along. You don't always have to show everything. So it's also good here for the query to give an example. So maybe the main character mutters a praise, like thank God, or her mouth starts salivating, something like that. The finally, in the finally repeated her question is kind of redundant, and that should be removed or could be removed. So it's just she repeated her question. The stirring restlessly could perhaps be changed into a stronger verb. So, for instance, fluttering or itching, or perhaps even the beast within me, uneasy, craving revenge. Query the author that swallowing is an action beat with dialogue is usually overused. When this is something like that, you need a larger context for that the author indeed overuses, and you can offer alternative suggestions that perhaps better convey the emotion, such as my throat constricted or my hands trembled. And if the viewpoint character refers to Thesea as Tess, then it would be possible to use Tess in the narrative as well, as it is in first person. So you just kind of keep with the voice of the first person character. So in the nonfiction example, you can see it here with the grammar errors fixed. The editor might suggest some other things as well. For instance, to avoid the repetitive sentence structure in the first paragraph, the author could recast it. So, for instance, in this chapter, we will first discuss the terms related to anxiety and avoidance before moving on to some practical exercises you can do to counter avoidance. And at the end of the chapter, we will share how you can turn them into long-lasting habits. The final paragraph also has some repetition with the word avoidance. So the author can remove this by recasting the sentences. For instance, when you have anxiety, it is likely you're familiar with avoidance. This is when you keep away from particular situations, people, surroundings, or things because you associate them with something negative. Or it's possible to also shift them around. So it becomes avoidance is when you keep away from particular situations, people, surroundings, or things because you associate them with something negative. If you have anxiety, you are likely familiar with this phenomenon. So again, these are just some examples to give you an idea of why I've come to consider line and copy editing kind of one job, sentence level editing. And then, of course, there are many changes that you could suggest and make, especially if you're the writer, because then, like I said, you don't have to oblige the don't change it if it doesn't fix it. If it isn't, don't change it if it isn't broken. That was the one. Because you're the writer and you don't necessarily need a reason to make changes. Although it can be good to always ask yourself when you make a change, why are you making a change? It's just because you find it sounds better, but then you can also ask, like, if it does sound better, why? Right? Because if you can find all the reasons behind it, it's going to help improve your writing. For instance, if you find that the reason it sounds better is because it adds some alliteration effect, then that is something you can add to your tool belt, right? Then you know, like if I want to make something sound better and put more emphasis on it, perhaps I can use an alliteration effect. So there's that. Anyway, I hope this video has given you a good idea of what sentence level editing entails. And I will make some future videos where I explain some more concepts related to this to help you edit your book as well. And if you'd like some more tips on editing, you can sign up for my free self-editing course where you'll learn more about each stage of editing, including line editing and copy editing separately. And this also will have some examples and guidance for how you can do this yourself. And you can find the link for this in the description of this video. And for more information on the types of editing or some other general self-editing tips, just have a look at my other videos. And if you enjoyed this one, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated for more content. And thank you for watching.